In this lecture, I'll briefly go over the 3D cursor, which is this red and white cursor icon in the 3D viewport here. So this is basically just a reference point in space. Its most basic usage is being the point at which new objects are created. For example, if I move the cursor over there and I add in a new object, it adds it in wherever that cursor is. The cursor can also be used as a pivot point, which is a reference point for transformations. For example, if I select the cube here, and right now if I press R to rotate it, it's rotating around the origin point. But we can switch the pivot point to 3D cursor, and now it's going to rotate around wherever the 3D cursor is. But we'll go over pivot point stuff in another lecture. Now to move the 3D cursor around, you can simply hold Shift and right click, or right click and drag and place it wherever you want. Now if at any point you want to return the 3D cursor to the center of the Blender world, we can press Shift and S for the snapping menu and choose Cursor to World Origin. You can also press Shift and C, which will center everything in the view, and this also resets the cursor back to the world origin. There are some other options and tools for the 3D cursor as well, such as snapping options, but we'll go over that stuff in the snapping tools lecture. Now there's another way we can move and rotate the cursor as well by using the right side toolbar. So let me press the N key to bring that toolbar up, and let's go over to the view panel or the view tab right here. And down in the 3D cursor panel, you can see we have options for the cursor's location and its rotation. And that's right, we can rotate the 3D cursor, which brings me to my next point, that the 3D cursor has an axis of its own. So for example, if I move the 3D cursor in this view, you can see that the axis becomes aligned with this view instead of the world axis. Now, why is this useful? Well, this can be useful when adding in objects, because you can align your objects with the 3D cursor's axis instead of the world axis. For example, if I add in a cone here, you can see by default it's added in based on the world axis. But we can open up the operator menu here, and we can have the new object aligned to the 3D cursor instead of the world axis. So now the cone here is inheriting the axis of the 3D cursor, and even if we change the view, move that out of the way, and I add in another cone, you can see that it's still aligned with the 3D cursor's axis instead of any other axis. And this can be useful when you want a specific alignment for every new object you add in. Like if you wanted all new objects to match the angle of a particular surface, then you can have the cursor match the alignment of that surface, then every object you add in will also match the alignment of that surface as well. Now one thing to keep in mind is that because we set the align option to 3D cursor for cone type objects, anytime we add another cone in, it's going to continue being aligned with the 3D cursor. So if you want to reset that, you'll just need to reset the align back to world. Now one last thing to note is that the cursor is used in other editors as well. For example, if we split the window here and we set up the right side with the UV editor and go into edit mode of the cube, you can see the cube's UVs, but you can also see that there's a cursor version in this editor as well, and it works the same. You hold Shift and right click to place it in different places, and you can use that as a pivot point by going up into the pivot point menu and switching to 2D cursor in this case. Now if we rotate the UVs, they'll rotate around wherever the cursor is. And that's actually going to do it for this lecture. We'll be using the 3D cursor and 2D cursors and other editors as well throughout the course as needed, and you'll see lots of different ways that this thing can be useful. But that's going to do it for now, so I'll see you in the next lecture.